Welcome to the App Advisory Show, your fortnightly dose of all things cloud accounting, apps, and app advisory.
Hello everyone, so welcome to the App Advisory Show, and I'm delighted to have Cathy here with me today. Cathy, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, hi Matt. So I'm Cathy Samuel. I work for Harold Sharp Limited and I'm an accountant there, and I'm also a member of our digital advisory team.
Okay, excellent. And how's it been in this lockdown for you? What's it been like? We had a brief discussion before we started, but
yeah,
how's it been this one?
Challenging. I mean, we actually set up the digital advisory team at the start of lockdown. So I'd say one of the challenges was really getting to, because we all work with different partners, so just know each other and sort of forming that bond remotely. So, but obviously digital technology, it's what we do, and it's helped us. So we have overcome that really.
Right, okay. And have you found has this been the most difficult lockdown for you personally, do you think, out the three we've had?
Post-Christmas, but no accountant in practice likes January anyway. With the pubs closed, it just makes it that little bit harder.
Yeah, if you're doing dry January, that type of thing, you're really cutting out all options, aren't you, for any sort of respite from it. But okay, so you mentioned about the digital team sort of came together in this start of this whole pandemic, which is pretty interesting that you're all from different parts of the firm as well, which we might come back to. But how long have you been working for the firm, and what's been your route?
Right, yeah. So I joined Harold Sharp 5 years ago. Prior to that, I worked for a very small practice for quite a long time, and it was about 7 years ago, and I was still at this small practice. And I happened to answer the phone by chance one morning, and it was Xero inviting my boss, the partner there, to a free sort of lunchtime webinar where they promote the software. So I went and then passed the message on to him. He said, "Oh, I haven't got time for that." So I was like, "Oh, well, do you mind if I go?" So he was like, no, go if you want. So I went along to this. I'd heard a little bit about cloud accounting, but we didn't have any of that in the practice. And I was really impressed. And I went back to the office and I said to the partner, look, this is the future. This is what, we need to get onto this now. And I don't think he was that interested at the time, very busy. And shortly after that, I did leave the practice, and I did try a stint in industry, but having worked in practice all my life, it just wasn't for me. And then I got in with another small firm who were completely paperless. And although it was a bit of a back step for me because it was more a bookkeeping than an accounting role, but it fitted in with my life at the time with the children and everything. And that's where I learned Xero, receipt bank, all that. And then when I cut up my hours, I ended up getting this job at Harold Sharp, and they were quite ahead in that they had started putting clients on the cloud. Right, and I think it was quite good, really, because I think the fact that I'd used Xero kind of got me the job as well. So I'm always grateful to Xero for that.
Excellent. So we're talking about 7 years ago then. So I imagine just thinking about the vendors and the apps, like 7 years ago, there's probably 250 apps, and Xero is probably a bit of a different set of functionality back then. Actually, there would have been bank feeds and a little bit more.
Sage ruled the accounting world for small, medium enterprises, and all desktop-based applications. And as an accountant, over the years, there's been other software that had kind of come on the market to challenge Sage, and it was always a load of rubbish, really. And then so this Xero coming along, it was quite, it was. I think they've done very well, Xero, to actually pull accountants away from doing things the same old way. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just escalated. And we do use other software as well. We've used QuickBooks Online. Some of our clients prefer that. Free Agent, fantastic tool for very small businesses, consultants. So, but just the fact that it's cloud-based, it has really changed the way we work.
Yeah. Okay. And so that's a bit of a change in general. It's interesting as well what you say there about the other systems. Do you find that for you, it's you'll try and default to one system primarily? So if it's Xero or Free Agent or QuickBooks, and then if there's a real need for that particular client, you'll move to another like cloud accounting provider. Like what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, generally, most people that come along, they usually fit into the, Xero free agent role. And then there are some clients that have been on QuickBooks a long time, so we'll look at, QuickBooks Online for that.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some clients that are very loyal to Sage, so they'll move on to the Sage Cloud software. So, and some clients, I think they're that entrenched in using older systems that we do try and sort of, we'll have a look and see if there's anything sort of cloud. But I think ideally it's getting them on the cloud, really. That is the main aim.
I think there's going to be, for some businesses who have got their processes and their staff entrenched in that system, and it's a big upheaval to leave. It's not always just the thought of the actual cloud system you move into, it's just the thought of it and the actual change of it. And I think it's not always where you end up. It's just like how you're going to get there is just like too much of a big job just to think about. So they might end up doing it eventually, but it's probably on their terms and their timeline, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd say now we're probably 95% of the way there with existing clients in terms of moving them onto newer cloud-based software. I think the next challenge is kind of getting them to get more out of the software. And then looking at whether there's other apps that can enhance the experience for them.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So it must be pretty, if you're used to that desktop world and pre-cloud world, it must be weird if you were to sort of time travel and go, what was your first couple of years like in accountancy to maybe the last couple of years? It must be chalk and cheese, I imagine.
Well, I'm showing my age now, but actually, when I got involved, when I started in practice, very young, that was at the stage where people were moving manual records onto like Sage. So I was involved in that, and actually, I did enjoy that part of my job. I enjoyed sort of moving people, setting up the systems, training people, and then obviously over the years that kind of work subsided. And so I think for me, there was a point where I was actually getting a bit bored with accountancy. So I think when all this new software came out, it kind of sort of reignited my passion for what I do, and brought back some of those skills. I love training clients, spend a big chunk of my time doing that. So for me, it's kind of it's just given me a whole new sort of career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think we've got that danger of this subsiding on the training and sort of optimizing, because obviously and this isn't a Sage, the desktop world is just a slower moving world in general, because those features and upgrades happen maybe yearly or twice yearly, whereas we're in this world now of a lot more ecosystem, and the general ledgers are just moving so quickly and really trying to push themselves. It's not always even the user feedback, it's just where they see the world going as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for our clients as well, they're getting used to now sort of other aspects of the life where they get information instantly. And so they want that from their accounting system now. They don't want to wait, 3 months to find out what the profit was last year.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Well, certainly in the UK, we're seeing where I was looking at there was some national audit office were complaining that there's potential fraud with the C-bills and the initial loans that we got that were available to the SME market. And one of the things they'd said is how come we've not got up-to-date data? So you answered those 10 questions on your loan, your emergency loan, and you just literally got it. And one of the questions was, why can't we have the data more up to date so we could just check that? So it's really interesting. I know we've got the UK government making a move towards this digital government, but the more this sort of carries on, the more I think there'll be more of a push, because if they could make decisions based on, I could turn up and say, oh, my account, I'm down on my turnover from last year, so I want this grant. And I could probably manually pull that together. But if that was to be in a system which was generally linking in with HMRC very regularly, that would already be understood from their perspective.
Yeah, I think definitely HMRC has helped this cloud adoption, because even with bringing in back MTD about 3 years ago,
Yeah,
that obviously pushed a lot of people that were still on manual records or
yeah,
spreadsheets onto software. So it's definitely helped us. And I think
yeah,
COVID's helped us a little bit as well, in that, sort of clients have been coming to us wanting to know, do I qualify for a loan?
yeah,
What's the state of my business at the moment? And we've actually been able to say to people, well, look, the way you're accounting at the moment, you're on Xero, but you don't touch it from one month to the other. We
yeah.
really need to address this if you want this kind of information. So I think some businesses as well, they've had a little bit more time on the hands, so it's given them an opportunity to sort of review their accounting systems and processes, and
Definitely.
that's been quite positive.
Yeah, I definitely think there's definitely a more curiosity around what they could have. Not entirely sure they know exactly how to get to it or what that means, but definitely curiosity. And I think just the general know-how of digital, things like Zoom and Google Hangouts, they've become part of your personal life during this pandemic as well as your business life. So there's no excuses for
No.
not doing these types of things. And I think it's also showed how easy a lot of this stuff is. It's not, it's download something on your phone and you've got Zoom and now you're on a meeting with somebody. It's not as difficult as maybe we thought it was.
Yeah, it has some clients that were a bit sort of tech shy, and because it's their only way they've been able to have a meeting with us,
Yeah,
it has sort of got them to, and first time, they're on the mobile, I can't get onto Zoom, and then, but then once they get the hang of it, and I absolutely, for me, for training people, it's been fantastic. You can share your screen, you can record it, send them a recording afterwards, so it's been brilliant for us.
yeah, definitely. And it's just a whole video experience, right? Because you've got there's the Zoom and there's Google Hangout. You've got things like Loom, which is short, sharp, one way,
Yeah.
which I love. You'll know that from the stuff that we've been doing. You've got things like Connect 4, which has come along with a much more agenda-based type of video experience. So I think the video experience will absolutely increase. And I think video is just Zoom is just the very start of it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, I've found as well, even what would normally in the past have been a telephone conversation with someone, more and more I'm trying to get them onto a video call,
Yeah.
because it just make it easier. When you can see people's expressions, you can communicate with them a lot better.
Yeah, mind you, I was reading something about these clever kids at school now, how they're getting around being on these.
Oh yeah.
One of them's took a picture of himself and put it in front of the webcam, so it always looks like they're there. And I was reading one this morning, I think, where they were saying he changed his name to Reconnecting.
Yeah.
So the teacher was just thinking that the internet was always reconnecting, so not to ask any questions of him. So we'll have some bright kids on this digital stuff, I think.
Is it. I mean, they're always one step ahead of us, aren't they?
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah.
You've sort of mentioned, next question for me is like, what's been enjoyable about the cloud from your own personal perspective? I mean, I know the firm are onboarding and trying to increase what they're doing, but you mentioned a little bit earlier about the days of doing desktop training and desktop migrations. Like, what's been the enjoyable parts for you from?
Yeah, so I think, well, first of all, I think just being able to demonstrate new software to clients, train clients in new software. I think it's from an advisory point of view. It's been a lot easier because we've got more up to date information.
Yeah.
And I like the pace that it's going, and I like the fact that it is changing all the time. And I'm sort of determined that I'm not just going to think, right, got everyone on Xero, that's it, because it is going to keep changing, and it's just keeping up pace with that, really.
Yeah, and that is a challenge in itself, isn't it? Because the ecosystem grows, the core system grows, and if you're doing free agent and QuickBooks, they've got features left, right, and centre and integrations. That can be quite a pot to sort of stir and be thinking about, isn't it?
Yeah, I think from doing like your app advisory course, it's made us realise that, just get back to basics first, see what your actual software that you've got does before then moving on to other apps and implementing other things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if you're ever next out with a client, ask them about all their software, and not in terms of trying to win the work. Just say, if you listed your software, three, four bits of software you use, what percentage of that software do you think you'd use of those bits of kit? Because if you ask them, it's always 30 to 40%. Very few go, oh, I've got this sales system and it's brilliant, and we're maximizing it, we're 100% use of it, we use these 3 or 4 features to get us through the day, and we've never really gone back and revisited it, and it's changed in the 5 years we've had it. So in my business at Blue Hub, that's one thing we have to continually push ourselves on, is like, are we using everything in here? Is there stuff that's come on that we're not aware of? And we've had to make it like an internal project someone owns, else it just never gets done. So yeah, if you'd be interested, next time you're out with somebody, you should ask that and say, your 3-4 bits, what do you reckon percentage-wise you use? Yeah, we're all guilty of it.
Like with Xero, all of the stuff, you know, the main accounting providers, I mean, that it's just continually developing. They have quarterly updates, and there's always new features coming out. It's very competitive. Yeah. So I think it's just, we do need to keep up to date with that. And
there's opportunity in that though, isn't there? Because there's businesses who are either self-implementing the cloud accounting and don't really know, you know, what they can and can't do. So there's opportunity to pick up those people who are self-implementing. There's other people who are implemented by people who are doing the very basics, other accounting partners who are doing the very basics in cloud. So there is opportunity to pick that work up with people already on cloud, not necessarily your clients. And I think we'll see self-implementers a lot more actually over the next year or two.
Yeah, I think one of the sort of mistakes I've made in the past is trying to learn too much about a particular app. It may only be bespoke to 1 or 2 clients that we've got at the moment. I think because you get sort of excited about, oh, there's this app and it bolts onto Xero, and let's see, you know, and I've got a bit too involved really. Whereas, you know, obviously, you know, my interest should just be, how does it link with the account software? What accounting information? And I have got a bit too sort of bogged down with the details.
I think as well, it's just, like you say, it's exciting, it's different, and it's good. And there's nothing wrong actually with getting involved with a sector-based system. It's a bit like you just said, you've just got to check that you've got umpteen clients that you can go and apply this knowledge to. Because if you do that one till system and you do it once for that 1 year, and you spend a lot of time, which you write off as investment of education, but then you don't go and revisit that for another year, that system's probably moved on, and actually the client's probably different.
Yeah,
you don't gain out of it. It's a bit of a false economy with it, really.
Yeah, I think that's sort of something that I've got to sort of personally deal with, because I always feel like if I recommend a client, an app to a client, I feel like I need to help them. And obviously, but then, you know, my time's expensive for them. And it's probably help that they could get partly free from the app provider.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of work there, because I think you're right. It's like there's a handoff. But I think there's a part where you can be a bit of a due diligence person to lead them through some good questions to ask.
Yeah.
And you're dead right. Certainly from the account perspective, I see that integration with the account system to check that the data is going to be coming through and there's no fixing at year end or quarter end. There's real value in that. But I think it's just agreeing those parameters that when it comes to implementing and stuff like that, it either is us because we've got expertise, we want to do it over and over again, or it's not us and you use the app provider or a third party or whatever it might be to do that implementation. And it's those parameters, it's really difficult. You can get dragged in because of the grey area, and then you're like scrambling to get through it.
And I think sometimes I sort of stand back and I think, well, at the end of the day, I still want to be an accountant. You know, I'm not a tech, you know, I don't want to be a sort of IT person. So it's just in your role, really.
It is as well. And I think there's this IT, because I think a lot of it's business process. So I speak to firms that go, we're going to get our own cloud team, we're going for IT graduates. And I'm always like, this isn't IT, it's about understanding how data and businesses run. And it's not IT. So it's great if you can use IT, but that'll be a given anyway now, because we've got, you know, kids submitting homework age 5 through Teams and Google's Classroom and stuff. Like, we ain't got to worry about that. They'll know how to use this stuff. It's just going to be about businesses run and experiences and people and that type of experience. Really.
And that's what I'm interested in more than anything. It's just seeing how each business runs and putting the systems in place to get them to run smoothly.
Great. So what have you found difficult from the cloud in terms of, you know, that we've touched on it. It's good to go through what's good. What have you found difficult in terms of a challenge? What's been challenging for you?
Well, like I said, I think one of the challenges has been to get people to embrace it, especially clients that they've got their own bookkeepers that may have been using one system, very protective over the work. So that's been quite a challenge.
Yeah.
Some of the apps out there, you go on the website and it's not very clear what they do at all. That's been a bit challenging. Sort of reviewing some of the apps.
I just touch on that. I think that's a really interesting point, actually, that you've just raised around the apps, because I think ideally, if we go back to the pre-pandemic model, it was you go to maybe a road show or one of the vendors' events, you sort of get a flavour for it, and then they follow up with the webinar or the one-to-one demo, and that's sort of gone now. I think they've got to get a bit more creative with how they engage you as partners now.
Don't get me wrong, some of them have got fantastic websites and resources that anybody can access, but others are very, you know, it's literally like a front page and on the website, and then it's like, you know, how do I get any more information without committing us? I just want to sort of review the software. Yeah,
do a little bit more and understand, dig a little bit more.
I do miss the road shows though. I've really missed that during lockdown.
Yeah, I think they were well received, weren't they? Those events, definitely. So, any other challenges that you found in general?
Not really, no. No. I think that's been the main ones, really. Sort of like I said, just implementing apps that you may only use once in your whole working life, you know, and getting too involved in those and getting clients on board. It's just been things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And what's your favourite apps? What's your sort of which ones have you sort of stuck with and enjoyed and any new ones that you've seen that you quite like the look of?
Yeah, so I think the favourite app has got to be definitely Receipt Bank.
Right. Okay.
It's just I've never had a problem selling that to a client. You know, it's like every client I show it to, they're like, "Oh, wow, that's fantastic." Yeah. I think just the fact that it gets rid of a lot of paper for people is a big win to begin with. And I think for that app as well, because it applies to all businesses, it's not like, obviously I've been doing a bit of work with Unleash recently. That's a fabulous stock management system. Yeah. But not every client needs a stock management system, whereas all clients have bills to pay. Yeah. So that's been, I've really liked Receipt Bank. And I've used TransferWise as well. That's one of the new ones on the market, which enables you to pay your bills through Xero. So I really like that. Not had much uptake at the moment. I think people are a bit nervous about when it comes to something that's connected with the banking.
Yeah, I think as well, like you say, it is new, and I think it's I think with Receipt Bank, it's been around, or those types of tools been around a while now, so it's maybe not as shocking. But someone called me a magician once using Receipt Bank. When I took the scan of the receipt, and then about 20 minutes later it was in there written out, he was like, "You are a digital magician." Oh,
that's a great term to put on your CV, isn't it?
So there you are. I've actually, that's only just come back into my head but he did call me a digital magician. But it just shows that is like, well,
it has been around a long time, and I think we got a little bit complacent about it. And then when we started thinking about, let's get back to basics, let's get the basics, and we realised, you know, there's a lot of clients out there that we still haven't introduced to it. Yeah. You know, and they were really impressed. And I think you've got to remember that you know, it's like you're used to seeing what these things can do, and it loses its wow factor with you. But then you've got to remember that it's new to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely one you can take for granted because you've seen it for umpteen years now, and that not Receipt Bank, there's HubDoc and Auto Entry and all of those. You know, there's a similar theme to them, but I think we do forget those a lot, and it's like, and they're really useful to us, you know, as firms. They're amazingly useful to get that data in regularly and relatively clean, and it's what you want to get to. So it is really important we get those.
Yeah, and I think we're trying as well to move clients away from using the account software. It's just a cash book.
Yes.
Where they just get the bank bed in and they say, right, that was a sales receipt, that was a purchase payment. supply payment for this. We're trying to actually get them to set up the proper ledgers so that they get that real-time information.
Yeah.
So they're not seeing how much they spent on electricity when they've paid the bill. They're actually seeing how much do they owe.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward. Yeah, it is. It is, and I think when you can say to a business owner that we could have your month end tied up a couple of days after month end, that's pretty powerful. To those that are of interested, that would be useful to us. I think that's amazingly powerful. And then things like Receipt Bank and those types of tools all come into play, because if you want that, you just need to use these tools, and we'll get you to be in there or thereabouts and get your bank feed set up, etc.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I've got a couple of questions left. So if you were starting over with cloud, so let's pretend you knew what you knew and you were going to start again next week or whatever it might be, anything you'd look at doing slightly differently at all?
Definitely the integration and getting people onto the cloud. I'd definitely do that. I mean, this is skills that I've learned from you, really. So I think initially, so there was the excitement there to move people over, and we just went at it like bull in a china shop. Just said to people, "We'll move you on to Xero." So, and that's like one line that you're offering them. Whereas when you actually break it down, there's a lot of steps involved.
Yes.
Doing that. I mean, even just like setting up a sales invoice template. I did one client, I had to set up 5 different templates.
Yeah.
But, it's not difficult stuff, but it's still time.
Definitely.
But, it was just, that was all part of the moving you on to Xero service. So,
yeah, that blanket statement.
Going back, I will definitely approach, sort of getting people moved over. I would definitely approach that very differently and sort of go sit down with them, go through exactly what they want, so that anything extra that comes up, and to stop giving them too much information away for free as well.
Yeah, as we say, give them the how, give them the what, not the how. You can tell them what they should be doing. You can't give them how to do it is the key.
Yeah.
But just on that, do you think because there'll be people who are just starting their cloud journey, if you listen to this, or very early into it and wondering what to do. And you just mentioned around that, migration and planning those and understanding all the steps, and also showing the client all the steps that we've got to go through to get them onto, not just this blanket, we'll move you to Xero, job done, or QuickBooks or anything else. Do you think that's down to, because when I say this to firms just coming into this, I get the very similar statement every time. Well, it's good for us, isn't it, if they go onto cloud?
Yeah, I think I can understand that. And I mean, even now, we've identified sort of now moving our clients forward with the next part of the cloud journey. There's some clients that, we feel they'll greatly benefit from the service and we can bill them for that additional work. And then there's other clients that we think, well, because of the level of turnover and everything, they probably don't want to up their accounting fees, but will make money on efficiencies. So I can understand that.
Yeah. But on that, it's not a blanket approach, is what you're saying. And I think that's the key, is to say, because I just think, I hear it a lot. And I think when you've done this a while, you see the value the clients get from it, who really, get involved in the understanding the system and what the numbers give them and the informed decisions they get. And I think that's lost. But I agree with you. There could be a really high fee paying client, and, you could include moving them, and it could be absolutely, because it's not worth really raising another bill. To rock the boat, you just move it through. Or it could be like you say, that there's an efficiency gain, and it's a very, very simplistic and hard-hitting engagement with the client. But there's ones in the middle a lot where I'm like, the value's on both sides, and I think some firms, when they start out, it's a lack of confidence and thinking this will all be good for us if we get them through it. But the problem you have with that is, if the client's not got any skin in the game, you're just doing it to them is the problem, and it's your problem to sort out, not theirs.
And I think I've learned as well, if you don't put a value on your service, then your service is worth nothing. And, the client doesn't value it either. So.
No, you're just doing it. It's being done to them. And if there's a problem, it's you to sort out, because this is for your benefit, not for mine as the client. So, difficult.
So I think,
but
it's just spelling out to clients as well what the benefits are, really.
yeah, definitely. And showing, we've talked about case studies, don't we, in the program? It's like, tell them what they've done, tell them who else this has happened to, why they were, what they've got. You've got to keep evidencing people in this world. So that's quite important. Okay, last question. What's the aims for the next 12 months for you or the firm, or what does 2022, the start of that, look like?
I know. I think the problem we have at the moment is we've got so many ideas and so many things we want to work on that it is sort of narrowing it down to, what are the steps. So I think the steps, step one is to get all our clients using the software properly and moving them to what you call a Cat 1 level. So that's making sure we've identified about 5 different things that we want clients to be able to do. We want them to reconcile monthly, want them to have like invoice automation activated, make sure all the bank feeds are working. We've added to that as well, set up a fixed asset register, running that, the depreciation on a regular basis. So we're trying to get clients to that kind of level. So that's working with our existing clients. We've got a couple of projects that we want to look into, such as credit control. There's a couple of industries we've identified that we'd like to sort of maybe target for new clients. So it is really busy, and it's just I think occasionally you can get ahead of yourself, and especially when a new app comes out, you're like, wait, another toy to play with, and it's just keeping a lid on it and just saying, like, let's get these projects done first.
Yeah, there's value in being an early adopter, because you do get to influence some of these things, but not continually being an early adopter isn't valuable, actually, because you just end up starting everything, giving feedback and everything, never actually delivering anything. So, but pick up on your first. Go on, sorry, Cathy.
Goal, is to get like every client in this practice, if they phone up and say, I've got a mortgage application, I need the figures as of the end of last month, it is literally a 10-minute job. Yeah.
That's great. That's really good, because that's practical as well.
That's my ultimate goal.
That's a good one. That's tangible and something realistic that someone's going to ring up for. Just going back to your first aim about that. So when you talk about, I talk about Cat 1, which is the invoice automation monthly, and you've built on that with the depreciation, fixed asset register, those type of things. So what you've done there is you've just defined what your level of adoption needs to be, and that's what you're going to work to get to that. And then you'll get other opportunities on top of that. But if you get that right, you'll get efficiencies yourself, but you'll get opportunities with the client as well, won't you? And better service to the client with doing that.
Is that when we're getting new clients walking in through the door, we're saying, this is our standard. If you want us to service your business, as best we can, then first you've got to, sort of hit these standards. We can help you do it. But,
do you know, it's so easy, especially when they walk in and they're already cloud. I always think this, because firms always say it's difficult to tell existing clients to change the way we work. But obviously that person who walks through the door is somebody else's client, and you're just telling them something differently. And I don't think there's a magic pill to fix this, but it's just weird when you walk in to another potential supplier or partner or whatever you want to call it, and you follow their what they say, but you won't listen to your existing accountant sometimes and what they say. Do you know what I mean? It's so weird, because it's just moving people around, really, and they go in.
Exactly, which is why we're sort of trying to work with our existing clients as well at the moment, because it's
definitely
not only us out there, so we are going to, it's part of our year-end process as well now, is that we do a digital review and that goes on the file.
Great. Okay, right, well, we'll wrap it at there. That's been really good. Interested to hear about what you've been up to, and where you came from, and what's on the radar. And thanks a lot for your time. I'm sure people who are invested in the cloud and wanting to move in the cloud will have found that very, very insightful.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Cheers, Cathy. Thanks a lot.
Okay.